The Minnesota Vikings just got hit with a coaching exodus that has the entire organization scrambling.
If you
and
enjoy
the
the
bombshell
content,
news
please
about their
hit that
quarterback
subscribe
situation
button
has fans
right
either
now.
pumping their fists or reaching for the panic button. Buckle up, Vikings faithful, because what went down in the last 24 hours is about to reshape your entire 2025 season. And spoiler alert, it's not the Joe Burrow fairy tale you've been dreaming about during those long Minnesota winter nights. Let's cut right to the chase. Your Vikings just lost one of the brightest defensive minds in football, and the quarterback carousel you've been hoping would land on a superstar has officially stopped spinning, landing squarely on a 23-year-old kid with limited NFL experience. The pressure cooker is officially on, and the temperature just got turned up to maximum. Late last night, the news broke that sent shockwaves through the Twin Cities. Dante Jones, the Vikings passing game coordinator and defensive backs coach, has jumped ship to become the defensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders. This isn't just any position coach walking out the door. This is the guy Brian Flores himself praised as the mastermind, making those critical last-second adjustments before the ball is snapped. The chess player outmaneuvering offensive coordinators week after week. When Flores talks about someone like that, you better believe it's genuine praise, not just coach speak to help a buddy get hired. Jones wasn't just fielding one or two courtesy interviews. 5 teams came calling: the Giants, Jets, Cowboys, Commanders, and Steelers. All wanted a piece of what he was bringing to the table. That's the kind of demand that tells you this guy is the real deal. Washington just landed themselves a potential defensive coordinator of the year candidate, and the Vikings are left picking up the pieces of what's quickly becoming a coaching staff exodus. Now Minnesota finds themselves staring down 4 coaching vacancies. Count them, 4. The offensive line coach position opened up when they showed Chris Cooper the door. The defensive line coach got the same treatment. Jones leaving creates the DB coach vacancy. And they're also hunting for a new safety coach. That's a quarter of your coaching infrastructure that needs rebuilding, and we're already deep into the offseason. Sure, the big guns are still in place. Kevin O'Connell is still calling the shots as head coach. Brian Flores remains the defensive mastermind. Wes Phillips and Josh McCown are holding down their respective positions. But when you lose 4 coaches, including someone as integral as Jones, there's going to be an adjustment period, and adjustment periods in the NFL can be brutal. The hits kept coming for Vikings fans hoping for a coaching staff upgrade. Dwayne Ledford, the former Falcons offensive line coach that everyone in Minnesota was salivating over, just signed with the Baltimore Ravens. There goes that dream hire. Baltimore's John Harbaugh continues to build one of the most complete staffs in football, while the Vikings are left swiping through coaching Tinder, hoping to find the right match. But here's where things get really interesting for Minnesota's future. If there's one position they absolutely must nail in this hiring cycle, it's the offensive line coach. Why? Because all signs point to JJ McCarthy taking the reins as QB1 next season. And if you're going to hand the keys to a second-year quarterback, you better make damn sure he's got protection up front. The Vikings' relationship with their offensive line has been complicated, to say the least. Kevin O'Connell seems to have zero faith in them when it comes to establishing the run game. He'll trust them to pass protect for 4 or 5 seconds every play like they're the Great Wall of China, but ask them to open holes for a running back, and suddenly it's like they've never seen a defensive tackle before. The Vikings have become a pass-first, pass-second, and pass-third team, and while that's entertaining, it's not exactly a recipe for protecting a young quarterback's development. Here's the kicker. It's not like Minnesota hasn't invested in that offensive line. They've poured resources into it like they're trying to strike oil. Christian Darrisaw was a first-round pick at left tackle. Brian O'Neill is a perennial Pro Bowl right tackle, one of the best in the business. Donovan Jackson, another first-round investment at left guard. Will Reichard got $8 million in free agency this past year. On paper, this should be a dominant unit. In reality, it's been inconsistent at best, dysfunctional at worst. Remember the preseason hype before last year? Everyone, and I mean everyone, was projecting the Vikings to have a top 5 offensive line. Fresh off drafting Jackson, with Darrisaw coming off an all-pro caliber season, O'Neill doing his thing on the right side, it looked like Minnesota had finally cracked the code. Then reality hit, and that code turned out to be written in a language nobody on the coaching staff could read. Darrisaw's performance this past season left questions hanging in the air like Minneapolis fog. Injuries played a factor, sure, but the Vikings need more than what they got from their franchise left tackle. When you're paying a guy like he's elite, he needs to play elite, especially when you're trying to develop a young quarterback. If Darrisaw can get back to that all-pro level, if Donovan Jackson continues developing into the player they drafted him to be, if Will Fry can maximize his potential, and if O'Neill keeps doing what he does best, you've got 4 out of 5 positions locked down. 4 out of 5 should equal dominance. That 5th spot, center, becomes critical. The Vikings will almost certainly part ways with Garrett Bradbury, which means they're shopping for a new anchor in the middle. The draft has some solid center prospects, and you can bet Minnesota will be targeting one on day 2 or day 3. Get that position right, pair it with a coaching staff that can actually maximize the talent already on the roster, and suddenly that offensive line goes from liability to legitimate strength. Which brings us to the elephant in the room, the topic that's had Vikings fans refreshing Twitter every 5 minutes for the past month, the Joe Burrow trade rumors. Let's rip this Band-Aid off quickly because it's going to sting. A prominent Vikings insider just came out and said what everyone with a functioning brain already knew. Joe Burrow is not getting traded. Period. End of story. Pack up your dreams and file them under nice fantasy. This insider, who goes by the handle Crack on social media, put it bluntly. Every NFL team would be making multiple offers if Burrow was actually available. The reality is, he's not. When this person brought up the possibility to league sources, they literally laughed. Not a polite chuckle, but a full-blown, "Are you serious right now?" laugh. That should tell you everything you need to know about how realistic those Burrow to Minnesota scenarios were. Look, we all wanted to dream. The idea of Joe Burrow in a Vikings uniform throwing to Justin Jefferson, with Kevin O'Connell designing plays and that defense on the other side, that's instant Super Bowl contender material. Burrow is one of the 5 best quarterbacks in football when healthy, a proven winner, a guy who's been to a Super Bowl and nearly won it. Any team would be lucky to have him. But unless Burrow marches into the Bengals front office and demands a trade, which there's zero indication he would do, this is all smoke and mirrors. Cincinnati would be insane to trade him. Yeah, they've had disappointing seasons. Yeah, there are questions about the roster construction and whether they can build a championship team around him. But you don't trade a franchise quarterback in his prime unless you absolutely have to. And the Bengals absolutely don't have to. Even if, in some alternate universe, Burrow became available, the Vikings would have competition. They could put together an attractive package, multiple first-round picks, young defensive talent, maybe a piece like Jordan Addison, potentially even JJ McCarthy himself. Minnesota would be on Burrow's short list of destinations because of O'Connell, Jefferson, and that defense. But the chances of this happening rank somewhere between slim and none, and Slim just left the building. So if Joe Burrow isn't walking through that door, who is? That same insider made it crystal clear. JJ McCarthy will be your starting quarterback next season. Not might be, not could be, will be. This is the grave the Vikings have dug for themselves, and now they've got a lie in it. What other realistic options exist? Mason Rudolph? He's not moving the needle. Kirk Cousins coming back as the starter? After the way that divorce went down, that ship has sailed, sunk, and been salvaged for scrap metal. Maybe they bring Kirk back as a backup, but he's not your 17-game starter. Baker Mayfield? He's locked in Tampa Bay and not going anywhere. When you look around the league at available quarterbacks, the cupboard is bare. The Vikings are rolling with McCarthy whether fans are ready for it or not. Now here's where we separate the optimists from the pessimists. One camp sees this as a disaster waiting to happen. McCarthy is 23 years old with minimal NFL experience. He's unproven. He's a question mark. The other camp asks a simple question. What if he's actually good? What if the kid develops over the offseason? What if McCarthy takes a massive leap forward and proves he was worth that first-round investment? Development isn't a dirty word. Quarterbacks get better. It happens all the time in this league. The offseason is designed for young players to study film, work with coaches, improve their mechanics, expand their understanding of defenses. McCarthy has one of the best quarterback developers in football as his head coach. He's got elite weapons to throw to. The defense will keep games close. The ingredients for success are there. The question is whether McCarthy can put them all together. The pressure on this organization is immense. If McCarthy struggles out of the gate, if the Vikings stumble to a 2-6 start, the entire house of cards could come tumbling down. O'Connell's job security would evaporate. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah would be answering some very uncomfortable questions from ownership. Trade deadline rumors about Justin Jefferson would start circulating like wildfire. Nobody wants to imagine that scenario, but it's not outside the realm of possibility. The floor for this team, thanks to that defense in the schedule, is probably not as low as 2-6. Brian Flores has built something special on that side of the ball. But if McCarthy isn't the answer, if he's clearly overwhelmed, the Vikings will be forced into some brutal decisions. Do you blow it up? Do you fire O'Connell and promote Flores to head coach? That almost never works in the NFL when you elevate a coordinator mid-disaster, but Flores might be the exception. He's already been a head coach, he's respected, he's proven he can build a culture. None of this doom and gloom has to happen, though. The flip side is equally possible. Pressure creates diamonds, and McCarthy could emerge as a legitimate franchise quarterback. Stranger things have happened. Quarterbacks drafted outside the top 5 have become superstars. Development curves aren't linear. Sometimes a guy needs that full offseason, that complete training camp, those reps with the first-team offense to unlock his potential. The Vikings will likely bring in a veteran backup, someone like Tyrod Taylor or Marcus Mariota, who can provide insurance without threatening McCarthy's development or creating a quarterback controversy. Maybe Kirk Cousins comes back in that role if both sides can swallow their pride. But make no mistake, this is McCarthy's team now. The job is his to lose. For Kevin O'Connell, everything rides on this. His offensive genius reputation took a hit last season when the Vikings couldn't consistently move the ball or finish drives. His quarterback management will be scrutinized under a microscope. If McCarthy succeeds, O'Connell looks like a genius for developing him. If McCarthy fails, the questions about whether O'Connell can actually develop young quarterbacks will get louder and louder. For Justin Jefferson, the best receiver in football, this is his reality check. He's been blessed to play with Kirk Cousins for most of his career, a quarterback who, whatever his limitations, could get him the ball consistently. Now he's catching passes from a second-year player who's still figuring out NFL defenses. Jefferson's patience will be tested. His ability to elevate a young quarterback, to be that security blanket, to make difficult catches look routine, becomes more important than ever. For the fan base, this is put up or shut up time. You can't complain about the team not developing young quarterbacks if you're going to bail on McCarthy before he's had a real chance. You can't demand the organization draft and develop talent and then panic when they actually try to do it. This is what building through the draft looks like. It's not always pretty. It's not always immediate gratification. Sometimes you have to trust the process and see where it leads. The coaching hires Minnesota makes in the coming weeks will tell us a lot about their commitment to McCarthy's development. If they nail the offensive line coach position, if they bring in someone who can actually maximize the talent on that roster, it's a sign they're serious about putting McCarthy in position to succeed. If they cheap out or make a questionable hire, it suggests they're not fully invested in this path. Carmen Bricillo, the former Giants and Raiders offensive line coach, is a name to watch. Despite the Giants being an offensive disaster in recent years, their offensive line has been solid, especially this past season. That's coaching. That's development. That's exactly what the Vikings need. If they can land someone of Bricillo's caliber, it would go a long way toward creating the foundation McCarthy needs. The reality is the Vikings are at a crossroads. They've got an elite defense that's championship caliber. They've got playmakers on offense who can change games. They've got a head coach who's proven he can design creative offensive schemes. What they don't have is certainty at the most important position in sports. They're betting on development, on potential, on a 23-year-old kid who's barely played. Maybe this works out beautifully. Maybe McCarthy balls out, the Vikings win the NFC North, and everyone looks back on this moment as the turning point. Maybe he struggles, the season goes sideways, and we're talking about regime change this time next year. The only certainty is uncertainty, and that's a scary place to be in the NFL. The Joe Burrow dream is dead. The veteran quarterback savior isn't walking through that door. The Vikings are rolling with JJ McCarthy, 4 coaching vacancies, and a whole lot of hope that everything comes together at the right time. This is their reality. This is their path forward. The question now is whether they'll collapse under the pressure or create something special from the chaos. Only time will tell if McCarthy is the answer, but one thing's for sure. Vikings fans are about to find out real quick whether their second-year quarterback can handle the heat, because the kitchen just got a whole lot hotter. Now it's your turn to sound off. Do you believe in JJ McCarthy as your franchise quarterback? Are you excited about the potential or terrified about what could go wrong? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, smash that like button if you're ready to ride or die with this team, and subscribe so you don't miss a single update as this wild Vikings offseason unfolds. The road to the playoffs starts now, and it's going to be one hell of a ride.